My rich roommate's boyfriend destroyed my senior thesis and cost me my scholarship, then threatened my family's immigration status when I found his cheating files. So I decided to play his game better than he ever could. I've been sharing a dorm with Brittany since freshman year. She comes from serious money, while I'm on a full academic scholarship working 3 campus jobs just to afford textbooks. Her boyfriend Ethan is this pre-med student who treats our shared space like his personal kingdom. He started coming over constantly last semester and immediately made it clear he thought I was beneath him. The guy would use my expensive art supplies without asking and leave my brushes ruined with dried paint. When I asked him to be more careful, he just shrugged and said, "It's not like this stuff costs real money anyway." Brittany always defended him, saying he's under so much stress with medical school applications that I should just deal with it. The worst part was how he'd critique my artwork in front of people, calling it weird and unmarketable while bragging about how his stress relief paintings were more technically skilled. I tried everything to keep the peace because I needed this living situation to work. I even helped Brittany with her assignments and stayed quiet when Ethan would have his loud friends over during my study time. But Ethan kept pushing boundaries. He'd move my canvases without permission, leaving fingerprints on wet paint and act like I was being dramatic when I got upset. The breaking point came when I started working on my senior thesis project. It's this massive mixed media installation about displacement and belonging that incorporated irreplaceable family photographs from when my parents immigrated here. The project was worth 40% of my final grade, and I'd booked the shared studio space through all the proper channels for 6 weeks. Ethan immediately demanded he deserved the space for his stress relief painting sessions. I explained the project couldn't be safely relocated and that it was required for my graduation. He got this look in his eyes that made my stomach drop and said if I didn't figure out another space, he'd figure it out for me. Brittany backed him up completely, saying I was being selfish. I stood my ground for once in my life and told them both that the space was officially reserved and documented through the art department. Ethan's face went red and he stormed out. 3 days later, I came back to set up and everything was destroyed. 6 months of work reduced to bent metal scraps and shredded canvas scattered across the floor. My family photos were torn into pieces and there was paint splattered over everything, like someone had thrown buckets of it around the room. In the center of the destruction was one of Ethan's stress relief paintings, positioned perfectly where my centerpiece sculpture used to stand. I couldn't breathe. My throat closed up and I just stood there staring at the remains of my entire future. When I finally managed to call campus security, they said the cameras were turned off at that time. My professor was devastated but firm about the rules. Without the thesis project, I would automatically fail my senior portfolio, which meant that I lost my scholarship. There were no extensions possible due to graduation deadlines, and I couldn't afford to recreate anything. I was completely trapped with no options and no one who would help me. As I was packing up my things, I realized Ethan had left his laptop behind. I couldn't help it. I knew it would be my only chance to see if I could get back at him for ruining my life. So I opened it up and started searching through folders. That's when I discovered a file filled with the answers to his upcoming midterms. They were even more dated back through his years at school. I sat there thinking about all of my crushed hopes and dreams, and how it was all because of some ego-driven dude who isn't even as smart as he claims. I remembered that Brittany's birthday party was in a few days, and Ethan would be there celebrating with all his medical school friends. He'd probably spend the whole night bragging about his acceptances, while everyone congratulated him on his hard work and dedication. I downloaded all of the files to my laptop and prepared for mutual destruction. I stared at the files while crafting an anonymous email to Ethan's medical school admissions board, my finger hovering over send as footsteps approached the studio. The door swung open and Ethan entered, his eyes immediately landing on his open laptop. Instead of panicking, he smiled coldly. He walked closer, that same confident swagger he always had. I watched him scan the screen, taking in exactly what I'd found. His expression never wavered, just that cold smile growing wider. He leaned against the table, completely relaxed. He told me I wasn't the first person to try this. He'd dealt with troublemakers before and always kept backup plans. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Ethan quickly accessed saved email templates on his phone, his fingers moving with practiced ease. Within minutes, he'd created a confession from my account admitting to destroying my own work for attention. He showed me the screen, drafts he'd prepared for similar situations, just waiting to be customized and sent. Brittany entered as I frantically checked my email on my phone. The fake confession had already been sent to every professor and administrator in the art department. My hands shook as I scrolled through the sent folder, seeing my name attached to lies about seeking attention through self-sabotage. I faced an impossible choice: expose Ethan's cheating and look like a vindictive liar trying to deflect from my own supposed mental breakdown, or stay silent and accept being labeled mentally unstable. Campus mental health records could destroy my future opportunities in graduate programs or professional settings. Choosing to fight, I immediately forwarded Ethan's files to myself before he could remote wipe his laptop. My fingers flew across the keyboard, but I could feel him watching every move, that cold smile never leaving his face. Ethan casually mentioned he had insurance against troublemakers. He pulled out his phone again, showing me photos of my family members at their workplaces, outside our apartment building. He revealed he'd hired a private investigator after destroying my thesis to gather leverage. The photos were detailed: my mother leaving her cleaning job, my father at the restaurant where he worked nights. When I called his bluff, telling him he was just trying to scare me, Ethan showed me more. Detailed photos of my family's workplace schedules, our home address with notes about security, plus research into our immigration status from his PI. The documents showed visa expiration dates, employment authorization forms, everything that could trigger an investigation. Brittany tried to mediate, stepping between us and suggesting we all calm down. Ethan silenced her with a look that made me realize she was afraid of him too. She backed away, wrapping her arms around herself. My resident advisor arrived, responding to noise complaints. It was clear Ethan had called them, setting up documentation of my erratic behavior. The RA looked concerned, asking if everything was okay, noting my distressed appearance. During the conversation, I noticed Ethan consulting a small leather notebook. When he briefly set it down to show Brittany something on his phone, I managed to photograph several pages with my own phone. The pages were filled with names, dates, and what looked like detailed plans. As the RA left with incident reports filed about the disturbance, Ethan whispered that I had 24 hours to publicly apologize for the false accusations or face consequences. His breath was hot against my ear, and I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. The next morning, I discovered Ethan had already been busy. My academic advisor called me in for an emergency meeting. She sat me down with a concerned expression, explaining that a fellow student had reported I was having a psychotic break related to graduation stress and family pressure. The way she looked at me, like I might snap at any moment, made me realize how thoroughly Ethan had poisoned the well. While researching Ethan's background that afternoon, trying to find anything I could use, I found old social media posts. There he was with another scholarship student named Jordan, someone who'd mysteriously transferred schools after academic misconduct allegations. The pattern was starting to emerge. Ethan systematically contacted my professors over the next 2 days. I heard about it from a classmate who overheard him in the hallway, expressing concern about my mental state and suggesting the cheating accusations were delusional projections. He was painting himself as a worried fellow student, just trying to help. My campus job supervisor at the library called me in for a meeting. She mentioned disturbing reports of erratic behavior and a potential fixation on another student. The way she kept her distance, like I was dangerous, showed how effective Ethan's campaign had been. When I tried to show the downloaded files to my supervisor, pulling up the evidence on my laptop, the files were corrupted. Error messages popped up. The files had been infected with malware that transferred from Ethan's laptop during the download process. He'd booby-trapped his own computer. I made a calculated decision to contact Jordan, the previous victim, using information from Ethan's notebook photographs. After some digging through old university directories and social media, I found a current email address. Jordan responded within hours, and we met at a coffee shop off campus. Jordan revealed Ethan hadn't just targeted academics. He'd fabricated evidence of plagiarism and sexual misconduct that destroyed Jordan's reputation completely. The false allegations had followed Jordan to the new school, making it impossible to escape. Maya from Ethan's study group approached me outside the library. Instead of offering help, she warned me that Ethan had convinced everyone I was dangerous and obsessed. She said people were actively avoiding me, afraid of getting caught up in my supposed breakdown. I realized Ethan had been building this unstable student narrative for weeks, planting seeds even before destroying my thesis. Every interaction, every time he'd pushed my buttons in front of others, had been calculated to make me look unhinged when I finally reacted. In desperation, I approached Dr. Martinez about the test files. I waited outside his office, ready to show him everything, but his assistant informed me that Ethan had already reported me for harassment and making false allegations. Dr. Martinez wouldn't see me. Ethan's psychological warfare intensified when he started dating Alex, my study partner and only potential ally in the program. Within days, Alex was distant, clearly reporting back to Ethan about my activities and state of mind. I watched helplessly as Ethan infiltrated my support network. He showed up at study groups I attended, offering help and understanding to others while gathering intelligence about my movements and plans. People who used to smile at me now looked away. At Brittany's birthday party, which I attended hoping to find allies, Ethan publicly performed concern for my mental health crisis. In front of dozens of people, he spoke about how worried he was, how he hoped I'd get help, painting himself as a compassionate victim of harassment. The other guests looked at me with pity and suspicion. I realized then that I had to fight dirty to survive. That night, I began secretly recording every interaction, using my phone's voice recorder app hidden in my pocket. The moral weight of violating others' privacy pressed on me, but Ethan had left me no choice. Using social engineering techniques I'd learned from cybersecurity videos, I befriended Ethan's roommate Nathan through a gaming Discord server. After weeks of building trust through late-night gaming sessions, Nathan casually mentioned Ethan's habit of using the same password variations. During one conversation about account security, Nathan unknowingly revealed Ethan's password patterns and mentioned his backup drives hidden in their dorm. The discovery I made next shook me to my core. Ethan's cloud storage contained detailed psychological profiles on dozens of students. Spreadsheets documented personal vulnerabilities, Catherine's eating disorder history, John's father's bankruptcy, Joni's immigration status. Each entry included strategies for manipulation and potential blackmail material. The scope of his predatory behavior was staggering. Direct confrontation having failed, I created a fake social media profile using stock photos and began messaging Ethan's high school ex-girlfriend. Through careful conversation over several weeks, she revealed how Ethan had destroyed her college prospects by submitting false plagiarism reports to her dream schools after she tried ending their relationship. I planted seeds of a trap by spreading rumors through art department channels about receiving anonymous donor funding for thesis reconstruction. The fictional benefactor supposedly wanted to support students facing adversity. I made sure the gossip reached Ethan's circle through carefully placed conversations. Ethan took the bait within days. The supposed donor received concerned emails from an anonymous source questioning my eligibility and mental stability. The writing style and specific details matched Ethan's patterns perfectly. He'd incriminated himself trying to sabotage funding that never existed. Adopting Ethan's manipulation playbook felt like poison spreading through my veins, but I began crafting strategic rumors. Through whispered conversations in coffee shops and carefully worded social media posts, I hinted at Ethan's family facing IRS audits and his father's business dealings being investigated. The lies tasted bitter, but Ethan had taught me that truth was a luxury I couldn't afford. Ethan's retaliation came swift and devastating. My parents called me in tears one evening. ICE agents had visited their workplaces, asking questions about documentation and employment authorization. My mother's hands shook so badly she could barely hold the phone. My father's voice cracked as he described agents photographing their work areas and taking notes. The reality of Ethan's threats hit like ice water. This wasn't just about grades anymore. My family's entire life in this country hung in the balance. That night, I crossed a line I'd never imagined crossing. Using Ethan's stolen credentials, I accessed his Google Calendar and added suspicious meetings with known campus substance dealers during times I knew he was elsewhere. Maya's awakening happened during a study session. She caught Ethan scrolling through her text messages on her phone while she was in the bathroom. When she confronted him, she noticed him quickly closing multiple messaging apps. The realization that he'd been monitoring all his friends' communications dawned on her face like horror. Brittany's breakdown came during a late-night conversation in our dorm. Through tears, she admitted Ethan possessed intimate photos from early in their relationship. He'd explicitly threatened to share them with her conservative parents and future employers if she ever challenged him. Her confession revealed years of controlled behavior I'd mistaken for loyalty. The pattern became clear. Ethan had transformed his entire social circle into unwilling accomplices through systematic blackmail and psychological manipulation, each person trapped by different leverage, all afraid to speak out or support each other. He'd created a network of isolation within a crowd. Everything changed changed when Ethan directly threatened my younger sibling. He'd discovered they attended a local community college and sent anonymous messages suggesting terrible things would happen if I didn't cease my harassment. The messages included photos of my sibling walking to class. He'd crossed from psychological warfare into criminal intimidation. My investigation deepened when I discovered Ethan's operation extended beyond personal vendettas. Bank statements showed regular deposits from data brokers and marketing companies. He'd been selling student information, social security numbers, financial aid details, family information to the highest bidders. This wasn't just bullying, it was a criminal enterprise. Jordan agreed to provide testimony through encrypted video calls, though fear still colored every word. Jordan warned that Ethan's father had connections to law firms and private investigators who'd protected him before. Previous victims had been silenced through legal threats and strategic character assassination. The evidence mounted when I found proof of systematic bribery. Ethan's father's company had made substantial donations to the university, precisely timed with Ethan's various infractions being dismissed. Board members received consulting fees. Department heads found their research suddenly funded. The corruption reached higher than I'd imagined. Alex's awakening came when Ethan asked them to plant prescription bottles in my dorm room. The plan involved Alex suggesting a study session, then leaving the planted evidence for campus security to find during a wellness check. The request shocked Alex into recognizing they'd been manipulated into becoming an accomplice to framing someone. The alliance between myself, Maya, Alex, and Jordan solidified through encrypted communications. We shared evidence and experiences, realizing we were fighting not just Ethan, but an entire system designed to protect wealthy predators. Each story revealed new depths of his manipulation tactics. Abandoning my ethical boundaries completely, I used stolen credentials from multiple sources to access Ethan's cloud storage. The moral weight of becoming what I fought against pressed down, but survival demanded transformation. Inside, I found years of blackmail material, evidence of grade manipulation, and records of bribes. During a confrontation in the library, Ethan made a crucial mistake. Frustrated by my resistance, he mentioned specific details about my family's visa applications that he couldn't have legally known. His slip revealed criminal access to federal databases through his father's connections. Maya witnessed the entire exchange. Working as Dr. Martinez's teaching assistant, Maya discovered something significant. Cross-referencing Ethan's submitted assignments with the cheating files I'd found revealed exact matches across multiple courses. The patterns were undeniable. Years of systematic academic fraud hidden by technical sophistication. Ethan's control system began fracturing as victims realized they could support each other. Secret meetings in off-campus locations allowed people to share their experiences. The collective evidence painted a picture of systematic predation spanning years. Each person's story strengthened others' resolve to fight back. The momentum shifted palpably as word spread through whisper networks. Students who'd felt watched and manipulated for years began connecting dots. Ethan's carefully maintained image cracked as people compared notes about his tactics. The resistance network grew organically from shared trauma. My resident advisor, Catherine, revealed she'd been documenting strange patterns for months. Multiple students had reported feeling surveilled, finding their personal information mysteriously known by others, experiencing coordinated social isolation after crossing Ethan. Her informal records corroborated our evidence. Desperation drove Ethan to offer a deal. Through Brittany, he proposed destroying all blackmail material in exchange for dropping the academic fraud allegations. The offer revealed his recognition that his position was weakening. He needed an exit strategy. I rejected the deal immediately. Accepting meant condemning future victims to the same systematic abuse. Ethan's pattern was clear. He'd simply rebuild his predatory network elsewhere. Justice demanded complete exposure, not negotiated silence. His options narrowed as victims coordinated resistance. His manipulation tactics, dependent on isolated targets, lost effectiveness against unified opposition. The fear-based control system required secrecy to function. Collective action destroyed that fundamental requirement. Dr. Peterson's discovery added another dimension. He found evidence of unauthorized access to his faculty account, with exam materials downloaded at times he wasn't on campus. The realization that Ethan had been stealing passwords and hacking faculty accounts elevated the situation from academic misconduct to criminal charges. I contacted a local investigative journalist who specialized in campus corruption. Organizing evidence into comprehensive packages, I provided documentation of bribery, blackmail, and systematic abuse. The journalist's preliminary investigation confirmed patterns suggesting federal crimes. Ethan's victims formed an official support group, meeting weekly to process trauma and coordinate testimony. They looked to me for leadership in a fight that could destroy us all. The weight of responsibility for their futures pressed heavily as I made strategic decisions. Ethan attempted escape through medical leave, citing stress and mental health concerns. I blocked this maneuver by providing campus administration with evidence of his criminal surveillance activities. The documentation made clear this wasn't a health issue, but a predator avoiding consequences. The journalist's investigation uncovered the broader network. Ethan's father had bribed multiple university officials over years, creating a protected pathway for his son's behavior. Financial records showed systematic payments disguised as consulting fees and donations. The corruption suggested federal jurisdiction. My reputation slowly rebuilt among students who learned the truth. However, I recognized the person I'd become, someone willing to hack, lie, and manipulate to achieve justice. The transformation felt necessary, but came at a cost to my self-image. Survival had required becoming partially corrupted. Federal investigators arrived on campus following the journalist's expose. The university's internal investigation, triggered by media pressure, had uncovered evidence requiring law enforcement involvement. Agents interviewed administrators about suspicious donations and grade changes. The scope expanded beyond campus politics. Ethan made a desperate play by filing complaints about computer hacking and privacy violations. His accusations were technically accurate. I had illegally accessed his accounts and stolen personal information. The truth of his claims, divorced from context, posed a real threat to my position. Brittany's testimony proved complex. While finally speaking against Ethan, she revealed I'd violated her privacy by accessing personal communications during my investigation. Her words confirmed my criminal actions even as they validated my claims about Ethan's abuse. The truth cut both ways. Facing potential criminal charges for hacking, I made a calculated decision. Full exposure was worth personal consequences. I provided federal investigators with everything: evidence of Ethan's crimes alongside admissions of my own illegal methods. Mutual assured destruction became my strategy. Ethan's pre-medical colleagues abandoned him as evidence spread through professional networks. Medical schools began reviewing applications. Residency programs asked questions. His carefully constructed future crumbled as the truth reached beyond campus boundaries. Professional consequences multiplied. The investigation revealed broader implications. Ethan's blackmail files exposed admissions fraud at multiple institutions, identity theft, and systematic grade manipulation. I'd opened Pandora's box, unleashing consequences neither of us had anticipated. The corruption web extended far beyond our personal conflict. Ethan's final manipulation attempt came through legal channels. His lawyers threatened to pursue maximum charges for hacking and privacy violations unless I recanted all testimony. The intimidation might have worked months ago, but I'd transformed beyond his ability to frighten. Federal agents revealed they'd been monitoring Ethan's communications after receiving early reports. His threatening messages, intended to silence me, had been recorded as evidence of witness intimidation. His own paranoid need for control had created the surveillance that would convict him. The courtroom felt smaller than I'd imagined. I sat in the witness box, hands folded tightly in my lap, watching Ethan's legal team arrange their documents. The federal prosecutor had warned me this would be brutal. They'd attack my credibility, my methods, my mental state. I steadied my breathing and prepared to face the consequences of everything I'd done. Ethan's lead attorney began by presenting me as an unstable student who destroyed an innocent man's life through illegal surveillance. He detailed every law I'd broken: unauthorized computer access, identity theft, privacy violations. The list was extensive and accurate. I couldn't deny any of it. My testimony took 3 hours. I explained Ethan's systematic predation, the blackmail network, the destroyed thesis that started everything. I acknowledged every illegal action I'd taken to expose him. The prosecutor guided me through the evidence while Ethan's team objected repeatedly. I kept my voice steady, focusing on facts rather than emotions. Maya testified next, validating my claims while confirming she'd witnessed me accessing private communications. Her testimony cut both ways, supporting my allegations while establishing my criminal methods. She described finding Ethan monitoring her phone the moment she realized the depth of his surveillance. The judge took careful notes. The judge faced an impossible decision: clear criminal behavior on both sides, with my immunity agreement protecting me from prosecution but not from judgment. He spent 20 minutes reviewing evidence before announcing his ruling. The courtroom held its breath. Protected by my immunity deal, I watched as Ethan received his sentence: 8 years for systematic fraud, blackmail, and criminal harassment. His face remained expressionless as the bailiff approached with handcuffs. His father sat in the gallery, jaw clenched, already planning appeals. The victory felt hollow, knowing what it had cost. Ethan's final manipulation attempt came as guards prepared to lead him away. He claimed I'd seduced him into criminal behavior, that I'd corrupted an innocent student through jealousy and mental instability. The prosecutor presented recorded evidence contradicting his timeline: surveillance footage, dated emails, witness statements. His lies collapsed under scrutiny. His family's attempt to blame me for corrupting their son failed when victim testimony revealed years of predatory behavior predating our conflict. Jordan testified via video link about Ethan's high school patterns. His ex-girlfriend submitted written statements about destroyed college applications. The evidence painted a clear picture of long-term predation. I achieved legal victory but faced immediate consequences. The university placed me on academic probation, pending investigation into my hacking activities. My scholarship remained suspended. Immigration authorities scheduled interviews with my family, though the criminal proceedings had complicated Ethan's father's ability to influence the process. Every victory came with a price. Ethan began serving his sentence at a federal facility 2 hours away. I started court-mandated community service, teaching basic computer literacy at a community center. Both of us forever changed by our mutual destruction. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd become partially corrupted to expose corruption. The university implemented new privacy policies and whistleblower protections, though my academic future remained uncertain. I couldn't register for classes until the disciplinary review concluded. My thesis project remained destroyed, the deadline long past. Graduation seemed impossibly distant. Catherine organized support meetings for Ethan's victims. We met weekly in a church basement, sharing experiences and coping strategies. Some blamed me for making their private humiliations public. Others thanked me for ending their torment. The group dynamic reflected our complicated reality: united by trauma, divided by methods. My family's deportation proceedings dragged through immigration court. Ethan's father's lawyers had filed multiple reports, but without Ethan's direct testimony and with his criminal conviction, their influence waned. We hired a civil rights attorney who worked pro bono, drawn by the case's unusual circumstances. 6 months passed in legal limbo. I worked 3 jobs to pay family legal fees while attending required counseling sessions. The therapist helped me process the moral compromises I'd made. I'd saved others by destroying myself partially. The weight of that transformation pressed constantly. Jordan finally felt safe enough to return to campus life at their new school. We maintained contact through encrypted messages, sharing updates about recovery. Jordan's testimony had been crucial, but the cost of reliving trauma showed in every interaction. Healing wasn't linear for any of us. Brittany transferred to a study abroad program, sending 1 letter before departing. She acknowledged her complicity in enabling Ethan's behavior and thanked me for the courage she'd lacked. The letter felt like closure for our friendship, necessary but painful. She needed distance from everything that had happened. Alex struggled with guilt over nearly planting evidence in my room. They switched majors, unable to continue in a program where everyone knew their near complicity. We occasionally crossed paths on campus, sharing awkward nods that acknowledged our strange history. Trust, once broken, couldn't be simply rebuilt. Maya thrived despite everything. She'd secured a research position with Dr. Martinez, her integrity intact despite witnessing my criminal methods. She testified at my disciplinary hearing, arguing that extreme situations sometimes demanded extreme responses. Her support meant everything, even if it couldn't change the outcome. The disciplinary board reached their decision after 4 months of deliberation: suspension rather than expulsion, with strict conditions for eventual reinstatement. I'd need to complete ethics courses, maintain perfect academic standing, and submit to regular reviews. It was more than I'd hoped for, but less than I needed. Nathan, Ethan's former roommate, approached me outside the administration building. He apologized for unknowingly enabling my hacking, though he didn't regret Ethan's exposure. He'd found his own passwords changed, his accounts monitored. Even Ethan's Peterson's allies had been victims of his paranoid control. Dr. Peterson advocated for allowing me to submit a modified thesis project. The original deadline had passed, but he argued exceptional circumstances warranted consideration. The committee remained divided. My academic future hung on their decision while I continued working to support my family's legal battles. The immigration judge's ruling came on a rainy Tuesday morning. My family's work authorizations would be reviewed but not immediately revoked. The connection to Ethan's criminal case had actually helped. His conviction undermined the credibility of reports his father had filed. We'd won a reprieve, not a victory. Ethan's father's influence waned as investigations into his bribery expanded. Board members resigned quietly. Administrators took early retirement. The corruption network collapsed without Ethan to maintain it. Market forces accomplished what justice systems struggled with. Powerful people protecting their own interests by distancing themselves from scandal. I encountered one of Ethan's former pre-med friends at the coffee shop where I worked. He admitted they'd all suspected Ethan's cheating but stayed silent out of self-preservation. My actions had freed them from complicity. He bought his coffee and left quickly, uncomfortable with the gratitude he couldn't quite express. A year passed before the thesis committee reached their decision. They'd allow me to submit a new project, but it couldn't incorporate any elements from the destroyed work. Starting over meant adding another year to my degree. I accepted, grateful for any path forward despite the extended timeline. My new thesis explored themes of moral compromise and survival. Using mixed media techniques, I created installations about transformation under pressure. The work was darker than before, reflecting hard-earned wisdom about justice and corruption. My professor noted the maturity, but mourned the innocence lost. Ethan's first parole hearing was denied. His lack of remorse and continued claims of victimhood worked against him. I didn't attend, but received updates through the victim notification system. He'd serve at least 5 more years before another opportunity. The news brought relief, but no satisfaction. Catherine graduated with honors, her documentation of Ethan's patterns contributing to broader research on campus predators. She'd transformed personal experience into academic purpose. We stayed in touch, bonded by strange history. She understood the weight of fighting back against systematic abuse. My family's immigration case finally resolved through a complex series of hearings and appeals. The civil rights lawyer had connected us with advocacy groups who provided support. We received permanent status, though the stress had aged my parents visibly. They'd survived but carried scars from the uncertainty. 2 years after everything began, I finally graduated. My thesis installation drew unexpected attention, not for its artistic merit, but for its unflinching examination of moral complexity. The centerpiece featured my reconstructed family photographs, visibly damaged but carefully preserved. They represented survival despite transformation. The ceremony felt anticlimactic. I walked across the stage knowing my degree came 3 years late and at enormous cost. My parents attended, proud despite everything we'd endured. Their presence meant more than any academic recognition could have. I found work as a victim advocate at a nonprofit supporting survivors of systematic abuse. My experience with Ethan's predation, though painful, provided unique insights. I helped others navigate similar situations, teaching them to document carefully and protect themselves legally. The corruption I'd absorbed became a tool for protecting others. Maya completed her doctorate, her research focusing on power dynamics in academic settings. We remained friends, though our shared history created permanent complexity. She'd witnessed my transformation from victim to someone willing to break laws for justice. That knowledge colored every interaction. Ethan served his time while his victims rebuilt their lives. Some thrived, others struggled, all marked by the experience. The support group continued meeting monthly, evolving from crisis management to long-term healing. We'd survived a predator, but learned that survival sometimes requires becoming partially predatory yourself. My reconstructed thesis installation found permanent display in a small gallery dedicated to immigrant experiences. The damaged family photographs, carefully pieced together, spoke to broader themes of resilience and transformation. Visitors often asked about the visible repairs. I'd learned that some damage couldn't be hidden, only integrated into something new. The nonprofit work provided purpose, but modest income. I attended graduate school part-time, studying social work and victim advocacy. My professors knew my history. It was public record now. Some admired my courage, others questioned my methods. Both reactions were valid. 5 years after that first confrontation in the studio, I received a letter from Brittany. She'd completed her degree abroad and was working in international development. She wrote about finding her own voice after years of silence. She thanked me again for breaking the cycle, even though my methods had been extreme. The letter brought unexpected closure. I never forgot the person I'd been before Ethan destroyed my thesis. Idealistic, ethical, uncompromised. That version of me died in the ruins of my artwork. What emerged was someone harder, willing to fight dirty when cornered. The transformation was permanent but necessary. In an unjust system, pure justice was a luxury I couldn't afford. My installation's title card read simply, "Survival sometimes requires becoming what you fight." Visitors studied the reconstructed photographs, seeing beauty in the visible damage. They didn't know the full story, the hacking, the lies, the moral compromises. They saw only the end result, something broken but rebuilt, damaged but not destroyed. The work stood as testimony that fighting predators sometimes requires predatory tactics. That victory against corruption might demand becoming partially corrupt. That survival can transform you into someone you wouldn't have chosen to become. These were hard truths, learned through experience rather than philosophy.